What is going on, 12s? Welcome back to another episode of the Always Compete Seahawks podcast. Now, I did drop an episode yesterday, and that was very nice for me to get back talking some Hawks, talking some ball, and I hope you all enjoyed that. And I wasn't really we're planning on recording an episode today, but there's been a change of plans. Now, recently there's been a big discourse about one really important position on the Seahawks. And I'm not talking like the position of offensive coordinator, because obviously there's a lot of discourse going on about that, but that's not really the one that I was thinking about. And I'll give you a bit of backstory before kind of delving into it. You might be able to already guess what it is, but I mean, you've seen the thumbnail, you've seen the title, so you know what it is. But I have been going for walks. I live in Connecticut, and it is frigid up here. It is so cold, but I have been going for walks to try to keep active and try to, at least get out and get some exercise. And when I go on walks, I either like listen to a podcast, I'll listen to music, or sometimes if there's nothing good that I'm really feeling, I will just talk to myself about sports, think about my teams, what moves could be made. I will just think and talk to myself. And I went on a mental tangent about the Seahawks today. A legitimate, like, just deep dive on the Seahawks and specifically the discourse around the position of quarterback. It's been something that's been kind of thrown around here and there. Geno Smith is entering the last year of his deal that he signed after his comeback player of the year campaign. It was obviously kind of an unexpected campaign, but he did sign his deal. And, all things considered, it has been a pretty good deal for the Seahawks. Gino is not making that much money, and he has done a lot more. He has had a lot more production than most other guys. His cap hit this year is 44 million, but his base salary is just 14 million. That's more so like roster bonus. He makes 16 if he's on the roster. His dead cap would be the lowest of any player this year. So all in all, for especially for starting quarterbacks and quarterbacks that all things considered are pretty good. I think that is a great deal and it's aged well, yet there will always forever be this anti-Geno contingent of the Seahawks fan base. And it's for various reasons. Maybe they have a problem with his interceptions, maybe they hate him because he's not Russ, maybe they hate him because they were hoping that he would suck so that we could get a rookie and he didn't end up sucking and now he's our guy. There's a bajillion reasons. Maybe they didn't like him because he was bad on the Jets. There are a bajillion reasons as to why people do not like Geno. And you'll never be able to talk those people out of their beliefs, their opinions, but like you got to acknowledge that he's been playing good ball on a relatively cheap contract for a quarterback. And I think that's something that we're taking for granted. But there is now this big discussion about what to do with Geno Smith and what to do at the quarterback position for the Seahawks. Geno is 34. He will be turning 35 mid-season. He wants an extension. People are hesitant to give that to him. It would be a pretty expensive a pretty expensive contract for sure. If I were to go to uh, quarterback by total cap hit, or maybe I can go to extensions for quarterbacks. Um, so if we're going by average salary, Dak just signed a $60 million. He's obviously not going to get a Dak deal, but if you're looking at something kind of like, I mean, you got to think that you're looking at something kind of like Jared Goff or Kyler or Deshaun Watson or even Derek Carr, who's making 40. I think that's kind of the baseline. That annual salary probably starts with a four. It's just the NFL world that we live in. It's gonna be a big contract, and people are hesitant to give that to Geno. I can understand some arguments, but at the end of the day, I thought I would do a cohesive breakdown of the Seahawks' current quarterback situation, talk about how I feel about Geno, talk about how I feel about potentially replacing him, what we could do to replace him, what we could do to extend him. We're going to be talking about all of that. Let's start with Geno, the guy who's already on the team leader. Geno, I think, is one of those players that is is extremely polarizing for weird reasons. I brought up some of the reasons earlier, but it's weird that he's so polarizing because it seems like around the league he's relatively liked. It seems like he's seen as kind of a good leader. He's a great story. Analytics nerds especially really love Gino. Like people that watch tape, a lot of tape are like, what Gino's doing on this play where he steps outside and sees this guy and hits him right on the sideline. It's amazing. And like I'm not really a tape watcher like that. I don't really know how to break down the game like a crazy into a crazy deep look about every little thing that happens. But I can watch tape and I study stats and I have eyes. I watch the games, so I feel like I am at a decent place to judge Gino. Frankly, I think Gino is a really good quarterback. And I'm not talking necessarily about his production. I think his production this year was certainly lackluster. We can get into all those reasons. Some of them where it was Gino, just not really producing at the rate that he does, where with deep passes, especially where the Seahawks, Gino had a ton of yards and only 20 touchdowns. And you have to be like, oh, well, why is that? Well, they get down there and Gino leads the drive down there, and then they either run it in or they don't score because the offense was absolutely dreadful in the red zone, which you could say, hey, Gino's fault. He threw a few picks in the red zone. He, whatever. I tend to blame Ryan Grubb more for that and the play calling, but I digress. Gino, I feel like, is a really good quarterback that is consistently being underrated by the fan base, especially because his first year was so good and he hasn't really been able to statistically match it. Although I think that if you just find the right OC for him, it will click. I think Shane Waldron had it, Grubb thought he had it, and then it didn't really work out, and now you were kind of finding it again. I think Gino though is genuinely underrated. And my favorite argument to bring up when people want to replace him is I'm like, with who? Who could we get now that is better than Gino? And maybe some people say, "Oh, Sam Darnold. Go out and sign Sam Darnold." Sam Darnold, frankly, on this team is about just as good as Gino is, and maybe even worse. I really think Sam Darnold got lucky because in Minnesota, he has a great offensive line, a great running game, great receivers, a great play caller, and a great defense. Like he has the perfect situation for pretty much any quarterback to go there and thrive. I think Joe Flacco could have been their quarterback this year, and they still probably win 12 games. And not to say that Sam Darnold doesn't deserve to get paid this offseason or that his season should have anything taken away from it because he did have a really good year. But in general, Sam Darnold is a system fit for Minnesota. And that's why I find it funny when I see all these smaller teams like the Raiders or the Giants, teams that really need quarterback, saying, oh, let's go sign Sam Darnold to a 4 year, $200 million contract. And I'm like, is that really what you want? Do you really think that you can take Sam Darnold off of one of the most stacked rosters in the NFL with one of the best coaches in the NFL and take him off and let's say send him to LA, or not LA, Las Vegas, where all of a sudden he has like Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers, a terrible offensive line, a rookie coach. Things are not going to, I don't think, work out very well for that contract. I think you know what you at least have in Geno Smith. As far as it goes for the Geno Smith versus Sam Darnold argument, at least for this year, especially Geno Smith is cheaper. I think for his next extension, if and when he does get it with the Seahawks, it will be cheaper than that Sam Darnold deal. And I think that Geno is comfortable here, and Sam Darnold, I don't think is a great fit. I think Sam Darnold is very lucky to have what he has in Minnesota. Frankly, I think he would be insane to leave. Maybe now he's like, well, who cares if I'm good or not? I'm gonna get my money and I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to the Giants for 5 years, $280 million or whatever they're gonna pay him if he does leave. But in general, I think that Gino is we know what Gino is. Sam Darnold coming here would be a complete unknown. He would cost way more money. He would limit the flexibility of the roster, especially if you want to improve things like the offensive line, if you want to improve things on the defensive side of the ball, perhaps with a corner or a defensive tackle or something like that. It would just create so many different issues with this roster that I don't think could be easily fixed right away. And that's the problem. And people are not taking in a full roster, a full contract-sized view of what Sam Darnold would mean on this team. I immediately discount anyone's ball knowledge when they're like, "Oh, just replace Geno with Sam Darnold." That makes no sense to me, and there is no world in which that like adequately adds up. One argument that I am willing to listen to is like, oh, well, he's expiring, he's cheap. You could trade him to a team and they would probably give up a couple of seconds. Maybe you could even just get one first. People would be willing to trade a lot of stuff for Geno because I think his reputation around the league is generally good. He does have a good, affordable contract. He's a pretty great quarterback, in my opinion. And I think a lot of, especially offensive coaches, would be looking and salivating to work with him. And knowing that he's on that expiring deal, you could also draft a rookie, have Geno there, things work. That being said, if we trade Geno and we get those picks, who is replacing him? If you want this team to compete in the near future, which is not even maybe next year, but maybe the year after that, who are you going to get that is immediately like, bam, this is the guy? Because this draft ain't it. We will get into mock drafts. We will get into talking about the rookie quarterbacks. Cam Ward, who is probably the consensus best quarterback in this draft, will not be there by the time you pick. To trade up to get him from 18 will require just an unbelievable haul of picks that I don't even think you're ready to discuss. A haul of picks and perhaps players like the Bears got DJ Moore and multiple first round picks to move for the Panthers to move up 8 spots. Imagine what it would take to move up 17 spots to the first pick. It would just be way too much for us to even remotely comprehend at this point. I, um, yeah, I think it's a crazy suggestion that we trade him and then we somehow find a way to compete in the near future. Because if you trade him, you can sign Sam Darnold, I guess, at that point if you trade him. But once again, we just went through why Sam Darnold might not be a great fit. There are not really any other free agent quarterbacks this offseason. There would be no real reason to go in and be like, well, if we just get rid of Geno, if things are going to work out and we'll be good. Don't worry, man. We'll be great. You are suggesting something where you have no immediate solution, and then you're going to complain when the team isn't good because what you want has no immediate solution. Like looking at these free agents, right? Who could legitimately see the field and play and perhaps have the Seahawks be good. Sam Darnold, but his market value is projected at around $55 million annual salary, according to Spot Track. So that's not going to happen. Justin Fields is a free agent, but do you really want Justin Fields as your quarterback? Like, come on, he's not good. He's definitely not good enough to be the quarterback of a competing team. Russell Wilson's a free agent, but you're not going to go out and bring back Russ when he's now a worse quarterback. And, is that what you want? Like, is that really what you want? Do you want Joe Flacco? Do you want Andy Dalton? Do you want Jameis? Do you want like Jimmy Garoppolo or Mac Jones? None of these options are legitimately interesting at all. And there's no immediate way for the Seahawks to get rid of these pieces. As pieces, I mean Geno Smith, and then immediately pivot and compete. It's just impossible. And people who want Geno gone are not ready to come to grips with that. You're not going to get Shadur Sanders. You're not going to get hell. I don't even know if a guy if some of those other rookies even fall to at 18. Like you're probably talking about like Jackson Dart, Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers. Like what is that? Like what what are we talking about? Can't like Jalen Milrow won't fall there. Uh, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't. I would be willing to like listen to anyone in the comments on who do they think can fill Geno if they want Geno gone. Um, I don't know. I really don't. I think I think the argument that a lot of people are making is nearsighted. It is not very sensical. And Geno at this point is the best quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. He is the best option. And to move on and to start competing, we have to get ready to really come to grips with that. We are not going to get any better than Geno. We are not going to have any pick that makes more sense than Geno. And there is not going to be anyone that fits this squad, fits what the team needs, what the team is expecting from its leader, and the stability of the roster than Geno Smith. Like Mike McDonald said yesterday in his press conference, Geno is the best option for us right now. And while maybe if you read that, it doesn't sound great, like, oh, he's the best option, but he's not like the guy we want. That's like you can look at that however you want, but you know, objectively, it's him saying that this is the guy. This is the guy, and this is what we have, and this is what we're going to work with. And I think Geno Smith realistically gives us the best chance to compete for an A division title, for a NFC title, and perhaps a Super Bowl in 2025 with a couple adjustments, with a better offensive coordinator, with some offensive line pieces added. I think this team can make a big jump. And I think we have to trust Geno. We have to trust what the team does and know that Geno Smith is the best option. Let's quit the discourse about Sam Darnold. Let's quit the discourse about some rookie that is not going to be there at 18. It's not going to be Carson Beck. It's not going to be Quinn Ewers. It probably won't be Jalen Milrow. He's like the really only guy that could potentially slip into that zone, but I don't really like him much as a quarterback, anyways. And he just failed. Well, he didn't fail, but he didn't have a remarkable season for Alabama under a Ryan Grubb system. And obviously, Ryan Grubb is gone, but like, how are you going to make a quarterback that's based on running? You can't just necessarily slot him in the NFL and just have him succeed. He's extremely raw. I'm not going to rant about this right now because we will end up discussing a lot of rookies and a lot of potential pieces in the draft. But for right now, Geno Smith is the guy. Uh, Fix other spots. The quarterback is not the problem. The last thing we need is to create another problem at the quarterback position. Fix the offensive line. Uh, Fix anything else that you see a hole with and just focus on making the team better. Let's not step back in a year where we are objectively trying to step forward. That is my those are my thoughts. That was my little quarterback rant. I want to see if you guys agree. How do you feel about the quarterback room? Leave a comment. Please leave a like, subscribe if you enjoyed. I hope you will stay tuned. We will have a lot more content coming and just enjoy some Seahawks rumors, enjoy some Seahawks football. I'll have more content for you guys coming soon. Thank you for watching. Peace out.